Ah, yes, the 1950s, when we were sure to have space rockets to the stars any day now. Any day now. Just you wait. Any day. After the Second World War, there was a big uptick in exploration of space and the technology to get there, thanks largely to Project Paperclip, which involved a lot of Nazi scientists being moved from what was then occupied Germany to the United States. Individuals like Professor Werner von Braun put huge strides into the rocket program, which ultimately led to things like the Apollo moon landings and space technology and so on and so forth. Naturally enough, this was a beautiful market for the kids, because you can say, why, little Timmy, when you grow up, someday you could be living on a colony on the moon. One of the more well-known and actually better produced type of TV show related to this was Rocky Jones' Space Ranger. Starring the square-jawed Richard Crane and set in the not-too-distant future, it's a story about how mankind is spreading out across the solar system, often moving and terraforming various moons and smaller planetoids to create their own kind of stellar empire. With, of course, some people who prefer to stay on their own planets and steal from others, and people who just want to live in peace. Rocky and Associates are members of the community that basically patrols space and keeps the bad guys down. What we're looking at today is a compilation film made out of 3 episodes called The Pirates of Pra. Ladies and gentlemen of the Space Cadets, Manhunt in Space. Our story opens with Rocky's love interest, Vina Ray, being transported to the planet Casa 7, which is being fortified by the United Planets. She's going to see her brother, who she hasn't seen for quite a while.
How long since you've seen your brother, Vina?
Almost 3 years. He'll be on the Casa 7 project another 5 years. What happened, Reggie?
All the instruments are dead.
Right seems normal.
This is weird. Check the rockets. Rocket thrust is 0.
While they try to figure out what happened, my guess is they probably forgot to plug the console back in after vacuuming. We cut to Space Ranger headquarters when we meet Rocky and his associate Winky. Yes, his name was Winky. Just roll with it.
Vina's kept that spaceship visiograph busy for an hour. She knew I was going to call.
Well, she's having a vacation, Rocky. Now, for me, let me relax with a little black book and a gay nightlife.
A little more of that busy signal and you've sold me.
Well, here, relax, Rocky. I'll give you a couple of choice pages.
They're called into the office of the Superior when they learn that Vina's ship disappearing is far from the first time this has happened.
The United Worlds, as you know, are fortifying the planetoid Casa 7 as a joint control station for our entire solar system. Oh, yes. Professor Newton told us something about the project. In preparing Casa 7, each of the United Worlds is furnishing strategic and, in most cases, restricted materials. But lately, there have been disturbing reports of cargo spaceships vanishing on the way to Casa 7.
Assigned, of course, to investigate. Heck, he is the show's hero after all. They go to see Professor Newton and his ward, Bobby. I hate Bobby. Bobby is probably the subject of a scientific experiment to create the proto-Wesley Crusher, the most annoying kid character in all of science fiction television.
Professor Newton, I don't know where this flight is going to take us. Maybe to the far limits of our solar system.
Is there something you wish to ask me, Rocky?
Yes, Professor. Is there anything, any new discovery still held secret that might help us?
Yes, there is. But I've been fearful of even discussing it. Wrongly used, it cataclysmic results.
Vena's life may be at stake.
Come, I'll show you. I'll show you the power of cold light.
Cold light.
Whilst Rocky is examining Professor Newton's latest crime against God and man, we find out what happened to Vena's ship. It's been knocked out by the show's recurring villains, Rinkman and Professor Vanko.
So, Rinkman, you've ended up as a space pirate. At least you can't sink any lower.
It's a very profitable business, Vena.
And to get it, you destroy spaceships.
You won't be harmed. We've just neutralized your ship's rockets and equipment.
Why are we still in normal flight?
You're not. You're revolving around Casa 7 in a fixed orbit, just like the moon revolves around the Earth.
How?
We cut your power and neutralized your equipment when your ellipse speed balanced against the gravity of Casa 7.
That's what happened to the other ships you've pirated.
That's right. You'll be revolving around Casa 7 for the next 1,000,000 years.
Rocky and Winky and Bobby, on their ship the Orbit Jet, find a missing ship, which was apparently from Mars, drifting through the area, and they decide to investigate. When they get too close, it shoots at them. Obviously been taken over by the bad guys. And when you're the hero in a shoot-'em-up space western, there's only one thing to do with an enemy. Blow them up!
I'll arc over the ship at R400. Release rocket on count 5. Starting run. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, the double M just became the scrambled M.
Log the incident, Winky, so that a full report can be sent to Mars Space Headquarters.
What did you hit?
Sighted enemy, smeared same.
And why do I have to miss all the excitement?
Bobby boy, the excitement's just starting.
Keep the radar decks open, Winky. I'm sure we're in an area our unknown enemies don't want us to search.
Continuing on, they find Venus' ship, which has had the markings removed, so it's just another derelict ship. The possibility that it could be in a trap as well, so they prefer to destroy it as well. How could Vena possibly be able to signal them not to blow her up if they have no power?
We can't operate the tubes. And even if we could, firing them wouldn't be safe.
I mean, force them through the tubes. Drop them overside. They'd have to see that and not pass us by.
It might work. We could give it a try. We may have enough auxiliary power to drop them off.
Winky, Bobby, look at their missile tubes, starboard.
It's starting to open.
We're going to be ducking missiles in a minute.
Fourth rocket, Winky. Same run. Fire missile on count 5.
Repeat on 5.
Starting run.
Check.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it, Winky. Hold fire. They ejected the rocket. They weren't firing it. That was meant as a signal to us.
Maybe the ship's in some kind of trouble, Rocky.
Get the magnetic lock ready, Winky. We're going alongside.
Having rescued Vena, they head on towards Casa 7, and we find out who the real villain behind the story is. Queen Cleolata of the planet Ophiuchus, an annoying, arrogant bitch.
After we left the CM7 to its lonely travels, we picked up Rocky Jones on the radar vex.
And you kept right on to Pra?
Sure, why not?
So he could follow you? You fool. Do you think you can outsmart Rocky Jones?
What do you think? I had Armin, your best pilot, standing by on a decoy spaceship to blast the orbit jet into the next galaxy.
You've disobeyed my orders.
I was thinking mainly of saving my own neck.
Remain on Pra for further orders. Out.
Know something, Doc? Yeah. Sometimes I think she'd rather see us dead than Rocky Jones.
All the evidence points to the planet Pra, a heavily fortified planetoid which appears to be in neutral territory, so they're going to have to get there to investigate. The problem is, well, it's heavily fortified, and any United Planet ship that's tried to get to for it has been kind of sort of blown up. This is why the professor's latest invention comes in handy. Like you knew it would.
As you can see Pra now on visiograph.
Well, what are we going to do about that defense barrier?
You know, Winky, what you can't see, you can't hit.
I'll buy that. But what are we going to do about that defense barrier?
I've been holding out on you until now, Winky, because I promised Professor Newton.
I know what you mean, the coal light. I never could get you to talk about it.
Professor Newton asked me not to use it until we had to. He's kept it so hush-hush that most people don't even know it exists. I'll have to brief you on it.
Right.
When the lamp's actuated by this switch, the filament in the vacuum tube is quickly brought to a temperature of about minus 243 degrees centigrade.
Freezing Jupiter, why all that cold?
Well, Professor Newton explained it this way. Heat can affect light waves to a point where images that aren't even there can be seen by the human eye, like the mirages that appear on hot deserts.
Oh, sure, I've seen them on the Sahara.
Now, intense cold can have the opposite effect. Blot out images that are actually there. When this lamp is switched on, the rays sent out by the terrifically cold light will make the orbit jet invisible.
Actually, this might kind of work. You see, space is, to put it in layman's terms, really, really cold. And the idea that you would probably detect other vessels and things like that by the heat they give off. Sort of standing out as a beacon against the super cold background of space. So this cold light would probably create a field around the ship that would freeze it down to relatively close to the background temperature of space, so you can't be seen on this scanner. No, it actually turns them invisible. Okay. Landing on Pra, Rocky decides to face down the villains and warn them to cut out their piracy. With no guns whatsoever.
You expecting someone, Rinkman?
Rocky Jones, you have discovered the light vibration of invisibility. It's friendly of you to bring this new discovery to us.
Let's not waste time, Rinkman. I'm here with a warning.
You're in no spot to give orders.
There's the orbit jet. Take my word for it. There's a gun on it ready to blast you if you make one false move. I'll make it brief, Rinkman. Stop pirating the spaceships of the United Worlds, or Prowl will be blown out of existence.
That's big talk, Rocky.
Easily captured, of course. Rocky manages to get them to blab out their entire plan, of course, and escapes with Hinky's help, of course. Queen Cleolata arrives and is not happy at the fact that her prize, Rocky Jones, has escaped, but she has her own plan for dealing with the situation, of course.
This is Casa 7, Ken speaking.
Rinkman here. Go ahead, Ken.
The orbit jet just reported. Approaching Casa 7. Do you hear me?
Tell him to contact you for instructions after the orbit jet lands.
Contact me for instructions after the orbit jet lands.
Rinkman, is everything going as planned?
Everything's just fine. Out.
You mean everything's ruined by your stupidity?
Do we have to go into that again?
I arrive on Pra and find Rocky Jones has made fools of a whole lot of you.
He just vanished right in front of our eyes.
What can you do against a secret like that?
You can find out what the secret is and use it yourself. But you let him slip right through your fingers.
Let's not make a big argument out of it, Atlasan. Rocky's gone. What we have to find out is how do we get him back?
Until we dispose of him, our very profitable traffic in United Planet spaceships and their valuable cargoes is finished.
You should have let us finish them the way we wanted to.
My orders stand. I want Rocky Jones alive.
Why, Cleolata? I just don't understand.
You don't have to understand, Rinkman. Now concentrate on these orders. I want Casa 7 taken.
No, that's not a bad idea.
And not too difficult to accomplish. Instruct our agent Ken to immobilize their defenses.
Casa 7 should be a sitting duck. We take it over and all the valuable equipment and material.
Don't fail this time.
Having discovered the pirates are operating from Bra, Rocky figures they must have had help in knowing when the ships would be arriving near Casa 7 so they could be ambushed. It's not like you can just wait around and say, oh, look, there's one. And that the person responsible for the landing field must be the one. Suspicion is dropped onto a Martian character named Hagar Nu, so he mysteriously disappears, figuring to have run off. Though when Rocky goes to talk to the man named Ken, who asks, now responsible for the field, who we find out in the earlier scene is one of the bad guys, things do not go well for Rocky. Again.
Ah, you're working late, Ken.
Since Hager knew rat out, I've been on 24-hour duty. I use the charting room for living quarters.
I came to check on the orbit jet. It isn't at the landing platform.
That's strange.
I wonder where it could have been taken.
The only place spaceships can be kept is at one of the platforms.
Ah, I see. Well, have you seen anything of Hagar Nu?
Not a sign.
All right. I'll check the platform again, just to be sure.
Now, Ken is not as dumb as he might appear. He sticks Rocky, along with Hagar Nu, tied up on the orbit jet, and turns on the cold lights to make it invisible. He then puts a chalk mark on the particular gantry so that he knows where the ship is. Rocky manages to escape. Well, why not? He probably knows the orbit jet down to the last bolt, and decides to play a little fun on Ken by erasing that particular mark and putting it on another actually empty gantry. So when they come to steal the ship, they find that it may be visible, but it's also kind of sort of not actually there. And with it being invisible, they have no idea which of the gantries it actually is.
There's nothing here, real or invisible.
Rocky Jones and the Martian are on the ship tied up.
If I know Rocky Jones, he didn't stay tied up long.
But he couldn't get away.
If he did, he's got the orbit jet, and Cleolanta will have your neck.
I'll find the ship.
Well, you go on looking. I'll get Rocky's crew into my ship and send them along to Ephesus.
With his friends in danger, Rocky Jones will soon show his hand.
Now, of course, Rocky has to rescue Winky, Vina, and, unfortunately, Bobby from the bad guy's ship, but there's an added complication. Seems the Martians are somewhat pragmatic people, and Hagar Nu decided the best way to deal with the bad guys was to stick some explosives on their rocket tubes. They take off. Boom.
I knew Rocky was all right, Vina.
Of course, Bobby.
Oh, Paul, you don't know how close you came to oblivion. Hagar Nu loaded the rockets with tonite alpha.
Wow. It was lucky I thought of knocking out those fuel pumps, wasn't it?
I knew we could depend on you, Winky.
Bobby showed us a new trick with his penknife. He short-circuited the door controls.
I had to do something, didn't I, Rocky? Well, that's why you took me along.
Bobby, you're wonderful. Oh, Paul, there are a couple more prisoners at your quarters we have to pick up to add to these. And we got to take them back to Earth to turn them in.
Oh, did you find the orbit jet?
Yes, and she's ready for blast-off.
So the piracy's been stopped, Cleolanta has been foiled again, and it's off to Earth to celebrate.
Hey, Rocky, what time do we land on Earth with our cargo of traders?
About 1900 Earth time.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, how about using the astrophone?
I've already reported to Secretary Drake.
Yeah, well, you see, I wanted to call Betty. I want to see if she's still waiting for me at the bandstand in Central Park. Oh, now, lay off. I'll ask her if she has a friend for you.
So that was Manhunt in Space. How was it? A lot of fun. The general background of the show is pretty solid, with heroes and villains and so forth. A lot of the science is reasonably solid, too. Apart from that ridiculous cold light stuff. Some stuff like, for example, Rinkman explaining why the ship is still in orbit even though the power's been cut is pretty accurate. And overall, it's not really too bad for a general audience that it was intended, primarily kids about 8 to 10. The acting may be a bit stilted by today's standards, but for the time it was actually reasonably good, and it's not too unwatchable. Apart from Quailata wearing a full evening gown and Venus' space cape, the fashions aren't too bad either. It seems to be pretty functional. If you're on a spaceship, you're not going to be wearing a full uniform. You're going to be wearing a t-shirt and a hat, as we see with Rocky. I also like the idea that Rocky's able to escape not because of something he pulls out of his ass, but because he knows the orbit jet down to the last bolt and knows exactly how to escape and short-circuit the door. That being said, I think there's one particular character who I think is the most open and well-rounded of them. And that person, surprisingly, is Winky. Think about this. Rocky is the square-jawed noble hero. Vina is the girl, who admittedly does some relatively solid things, but is still basically designated as the girl. Professor Newton is the mad scientist that comes up with the crazy inventions. Bobby is the annoying little punk you want to shoot at an airlock, but that's pretty standard for kid characters at this time. But Winky seems to be more. He's solid and dependable. He's an excellent astrogator. Oh, and a side note, I also like the fact that this show actually navigates in 3 dimensions instead of just, point A to point B in a straight line like you see in shows like Star Trek. He probably knows the orbit jet just as well as Rocky does. In fact, as a pilot, possibly even better. And his general easygoing nature means that he probably does have a bunch of names in his little black book. So for pretty good acting, reasonable science, a couple of face-plumbing moments aside, and pretty decent sets, good fashions, and for pretty much an enjoyable film, I'm going to give this 4.5 Maple Leaves out of 5. If you can pick them up, by all means have a look. I'm some Canadian critic, and I'm late for the Mars 315.
A little more of that busy signal and you've sold me.
Well, here, relax, Rocky. I'll give you a couple of choice pages.